Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show. Chris, welcome to the Principal Podcast. Happy to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is my pleasure. All right, let's jump straight into it. What's the story, Chris? What led you to build Elation?
Well, I've been employed by large Fortune 100 companies. I've been in small organizations. I'm a serial entrepreneur. And I've always kind of struggled with the idea of human performance and how do humans perform at their best. And so many organizations view their employees as essentially units of work. I mean, we talk about human resources, we talk about human capital management, but we're not really talking about people. And yet at the foundation of all of this are people, right? And how do you take care of people as people? And so I wanted to build a company that really focused on this idea of how do you take care of the people that work in your organization as human beings, as people.
What problem do you guys solve? So what is it that you're helping companies achieve through people?
Yeah, I mean, workforce management has gotten more complex. I mean, if you look at kind of multiple generations in the workforce, you've got young people who are in their 20s, you've got people who are in their 60s, even 70s, because people still have to work. And so you've got a very diverse workforce. You've also got a lot of competitive pressure. You've got wild cards like the impact of AI on not only organizationally what's going on, but also individually. People are worried about whether AI is going to come for all or a piece of their job. In this day and age, you've got socio-political instability. So you've got things kind of going on in the back of people's minds. And so all of these things kind of erode the capacity of individuals and teams to perform at their best. And by eroding that capacity, it is inevitably the employer that pays the price, right? They are not getting as much out of their workforce as they used to. And it's just accelerating. I mean, AI has just made things so much faster in terms of, people's capacity to crank out volumes of work and things like that. And so, the real motivation at this point in time is to just help provide individual people, employees, and managers just some guidance on how to look more sort of simply at how you take care of these people as humans in a way that you can improve their well-being. You help them become sustainable high performers in an organization. And by taking care of people, you're helping them as people, right? And so you start to build that bond between the employer and the employee that they really know that they're being taken care of in some regard.
Let me play the devil's advocate here.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, it sounds good. Like that sounds amazing, right? I want my people to feel better, to be more fulfilled and so on. But say I'm the big CEO of the big company, and obviously there is like a gazillion people trying to get my attention and get my budget. Why should I care? What's the benefits for the company of having people that are more fulfilled? Playing the devil's advocate here.
Sure.
Just,
absolutely.
Precautionary warning.
It's a very practical question, right? Why should I pay for this? Well, the reason why you pay for this is because people who are feeling like they're heard, people who are feeling like you're investing in their well-being are people much more likely to stay in your organization, right? And you've got onboarding costs, you've got training costs, you've got absenteeism concerns for people who are feeling burned out. You've got a lot of costs associated with people who may be struggling to be at their best. If we can help those people, maintain a positive mindset, feel engaged at work, feel like they're being heard, feel like there's a trusted environment, those people are not as worried about looking for jobs. They are not as worried about, things that are going on in the workplace, and they're better able to concentrate on producing, right? And so at the end of the day, the goal is that you're both taking care of the people, and by doing so, you're getting a better bottom line. And it's easy to measure the improvements in retention rates. We've done a bunch of work in healthcare around physician well-being. Very easy to measure a bunch of that. But if you look at just baseline workforce performance, if you can get 1 or 2 points of improved performance, you can get a tenfold return on the amount that you would invest in doing a better job of taking care of your employees.
Here we go. That is what I call tying it up to the bottom line.
Well,
Makes
I would
sense.
also mention that you're competing with other companies for talent, right?
Yeah.
And so the company who takes care of their employees is likely to retain employees and attract maybe some of your employees if you're not taking care of your talent well. And so, chief people officers and talent development officers are often the ones that I'm speaking with, because it is their job to figure out how to build a workforce that is committed to staying and performing at their best.
It's so interesting that you'd say this, and I think the direction that I was going to take this is, why should I pay for this? Well, you're going to pay for this. The question is, do you want to pay it with your money now, or with you recruiting, hiring, training budgets in the next 3 to 5 years? And also, do you want to pay it with your money now, or in lost earnings that you didn't make because you could have had a more productive team?
Right.
And that's, I think it's an interesting way of approaching it. And so you mentioned it, chief talent, chief development officers, which makes sense, right? We're talking about people here. Is there a particular audience, vertical, industry, niche, company size? You mentioned Fortune 500 at the beginning, but that's where you were working at.
Right.
So who is it that you help now with Elation?
We like organizations that have 200 to 5,000 employees. It's a volume that we can handle easily. We are looking for vertical markets where they're used to being measured, right? I mean, healthcare measures everything about their clinical staff, at least. Engineering firms, they're used to making decisions based on numbers. Financial services firms, again, we do well with banks. They're used to numbers. So the fact that we have an assessment tool that helps to quantify the well-being of every employee, the fact that we give each employee a confidential report on how they're doing, what's helping and hindering them, and how to make improvements if they choose to. The fact that we keep that absolutely confidential, but we de-identify the data and let leaders at every level understand what's going on with their teams. The fact that we create a bespoke game plan for managers based on the unique needs of their team, those are kind of the differentiators, and those tools are the things that a leader who is really committed to improving workforce performance, they haven't really had access to.
I love this. There's going to be the person that you need to talk to help their team, and then there's going to be the team that you help, right? Which are not necessarily the same people, and potentially the ultimate decision maker or financial decision maker, CFO, CEO.
Right.
And I love that and that's a thing a lot of consulting firms are struggling with, in my opinion, that you're very clear on the niche and the verticals. Like, hey, we're interested into companies and industries looking at numbers. Right. Engineering firms, healthcare, financial service firms. That makes so much sense to me.
Right.
You want to talk to go ahead.
I was going to mention, you mentioned consulting firms. Think about how much more effective a consulting firm could be if they had this level of understanding about what was going on with their client, right? Mm-hmm. That they could look and see, hey, look, the marketing team, the leadership feedback style in the marketing team is not really working well for the employees of that team. So maybe they could provide some consulting to the marketing manager to say, okay, it is going to be more effective if you modify your feedback style a little bit so people feel like they're more heard, and that even though it's not a democracy, at least people need to know that when they contribute, that contribution is valued. It may not be taken, at face value and implemented, but it is valued. And so consulting firms like this because it really does provide kind of a platform to help them improve the work that they're doing.
I like that. How do you, I mean, what has worked for you, Chris, to get the attention of the CTOs, chief talent, CTOs, development, of the target companies? I'm not talking about sales just yet. I'm really talking about branding and marketing. What has
Right.
worked for you to get the right people to knock on the door, to be like, hey, we actually need to solve this talent problem, or at least we want to
Yeah.
explore?
Time for a confession on my part, I guess, which is it's tough, right?
That early in the podcast? Okay, I'll take it.
I mean, it's like, so, oh, you do like assessment work. Oh, that's kind of like Survey Monkey, isn't it? Or that's like Myers-Briggs. We've used Myers-Briggs for years. It's like, that's the problem, right? You get pigeonholed because somebody has a preconception of what you do. And that's the point that we're at right now as an organization, is we are starting to get noticeable results, sometimes very significant ROIs for our clients, and they are starting to pay more attention to say, okay, this is something different. I mean, this is basically a validated scientific instrument that you guys have developed. This is not asking random questions. This is asking very specific questions for a very specific reason and correlating the answers with the other questions in the assessment tool. And we started working in healthcare, so we knew we didn't have much time. So it now takes about 7.5 to 8 minutes on average for the employee to complete the tool. And we knew we needed to make it quick, but we needed to make it effective as well. And we have tuned it up. We are in the 5th iteration of our assessment tool now, so we've had time to get it dialed in well.
I like the analogy with survey monkeys. So that's the positioning, right? Which, by the way, I like, because that's the first thing you want to start with in marketing.
Right.
But then once you have the positioning nailed and right, and the messaging, what channels do you use to get into conversations with the right people? Is there such a thing, or is it just that the assessment speaks for itself, and from word of mouth, this just goes to the next person and the next person? How
There's
do you
some
think
degree
about
of
it?
that. There's some degree
Okay.
of that, and I attend, business groups. I've been very involved in YPO organization. I went to an event in Los Angeles a while back, and 35 CEOs have asked me to follow up with them. And my positioning on kind of my 1-minute pitch is, look, you have a P&L, a balance sheet, and a cash flow statement for your money, but your people are your most important asset, right? Do you have the same kind of information on your people? Do you understand whether your workforce is hanging on by its fingernails or ready to, blow up the next big opportunity? And so the fact that we can provide the kind of detail around your workforce performance capacity that you have already on your money is really attractive to CEOs and COOs. So we've been getting more and more attention from them, and we're starting to build up a big fan base. We are always looking for cases of specific ROI. We've now got cases of ROIs that are, generous 7-figure ROIs on the work that we do. So things are starting to move in the direction that we've been working toward. So I'm very pleased.
7-figure ROI is not too bad.
Not
It's
too
not too
bad.
bad.
Not too bad. No.
So how do you move from this, Chris, to an actual conversation, a sales conversation, an SOW, a letter of engagement, we rock and roll? Like, what has worked for you to move from this awareness, word of mouth, right, which is really what we're talking about here, to getting people into a conversation, so you can be like, okay, here is the problem, here's the assessment. What do you want to do now?
We've had a combination of Google ads to target people who are, obviously looking for some tool. We've also been quite successful with LinkedIn. Just focusing on LinkedIn postings, taking the data that we've put together through our assessment work and looking at the impact of concerns about AI or the concerns about sociopolitical instability and how they're eroding performance, and how you turn an understanding of those issues into a set of concrete actions that a manager can take to help their team to kind of get through these kind of challenges that they're facing. And once somebody sees the power of implementing the data, closing the sale is not that difficult. I was very pleased because a talent development officer for a multinational company that I talked to a little while ago said, Chris, this has got to be the next generation of what human performance and talent performance systems look like, because so many of them account for things, right? They have big dashboards full of lots of data, but no insight and no taking insight and turning it into action plans. And we understand that we've got really cool data, and that really cool data can generate really insightful kind of perspectives on the business. But it's turning those insightful perspectives into the action plans for the individual and the manager that I think is the differentiator.
I mean, when you receive feedback like this, you're probably on the right track.
Yes, very gratifying.
Talk to me about retention then. So you come in, you help them solve essentially their people problem, right? You make them more productive, more fulfilled. And then what? How do you think about retention, recurring revenue, reoccurring revenue maybe? How do you think about all this?
Well, organizations are dynamic, and the work environment in which they operate is dynamic, and the competitive pressures are dynamic. And so we would typically have an annual contract that auto renews until the client's unhappy, but we haven't encountered them yet. But the idea is that you would reassess every 5 months, 6 months, 4 months, because it's a light lift. Because we're only asking for 8 minutes of an employee's time. It's not onerous, and you can start to track things, right? So if you've got a remote office that's a toxic work environment, and you've got a manager that's a micromanager in that office, and you take action and the manager either improves or it's no longer there, that uncovers the next layer of stuff going on, right? You've solved the big problem, but what's the next problem? Well, maybe the next problem is that communications isn't sufficient to help keep people aligned on how their role actually impacts the outcome of the work product for that office. So, it's like peeling back the layers of the onion. So there is always something that can be worked on. We've got an interesting case where the job engagement numbers are going up, the employee well-being and performance potential is going up, but the intention to stay is going down. And you're like, why would that be? People are feeling more engaged and they're feeling better and taken care of. Why would intention to stay be going down? Well, because there is no real clarity on what kind of future progression is for promotions, right? Once they had kind of helped employees get more engaged and feeling like they could do their best work, it's like, well, if I'm doing my best work, okay, so what's the next job opportunity? Well, they hadn't been as clear about that. So now that's something they can be working on. And the perception is that if they work on career paths and being clear with employees about what those could look like, then we can look at the next assessment that we do with them, and do we start to see that intention to stay improving then? And so, it's because everything is so dynamic, I feel like once we get in and are helping companies to keep ahead of these little shifts in changes and patterns of work performance, I feel like it's going to be viewed as the accounting system for your workforce, right? You wouldn't think of getting rid of your accounting system unless it just couldn't do the job. And I think that people are going to feel the same way about our Wellbeing Workbench product.
Amen to that. Chris, I like your style. So I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball question at you. And if people are wondering why I'm looking this way, it's because my screen is actually there, but so I'm trying to switch between the two. Hopefully in the audio version of this, it won't be too obvious. What's the number one challenge that you're facing right now? What is that one nut that you're trying to crack that, once you crack, you're going to take the whole thing to the next level, if that's even the goal?
Sure.
What would that be for you?
One of the things that we do really well at is we have a leader, a CEO, president, whatever, that is enlightened enough to say, I really want to see this data, even if it's a little scary, right? Because if you assess an entire organization, but you're a manager who's got imposter syndrome and you're worried about what that might show, and you might feel it's an indictment of your leadership style, you might be kind of worried about doing something like this. The irony, of course, is that you're sort of going to be staying stuck at that point. Leaders who are willing to take a little bit of a risk and say, having good data is the best thing I can do to not only improve my capacity to perform as a leader, but also to help my organization be the kind of place where people want to work. Taking that little leap of faith is really important. So we have been working to identify, how do you find those leaders? And there's a lot of AI tools out there in the whole marketing and sales lead gen space that can be helpful. We also, of course, are looking for triggering events. A company that just got a Series B funding, a new leadership team came in, or whatever, that would be a triggering event, so that a leader is like, I just got in here, what's going on with the workforce? They're an ideal candidate because we can give them a quick snapshot. And it's not a heavy lift, right? I mean, it's an assessment that takes 8 minutes. There's a little bit of back office work that needs to be done, but we can get an assessment up and running in a matter of weeks for an employer, and we will have the results back to them in a week or two. And so this is not a long lead time kind of thing, and it's not expensive. I mean, we're a software as a service platform, so it is not an expensive lift for them. So really finding those people that have an urgent need, finding people who are committed enough that they are willing to take that little bit of a risk. And no leader that has worked with us has ever told me, oh my God, I don't want to show my employees what's going on because, I feel badly that I didn't do a better job as a leader. We've never encountered that. It's sort of a false concern, but it's still one we have to overcome.
Chris Dimock, ladies and gentlemen. Chris, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
Elation.com is the website for the company, and they can reach out through the link on the website, or they can reach out to me directly. My email is chris@elation.com.
All right. We'll put all the links in the description. I can say one thing for sure, Chris, is that you've gained at least one new connection on LinkedIn out of this interview. I've now added you. Chris, thank you so much.
Talking with you.
It was. Thank you so much for coming on the Principal Podcast. It's Elation, written from left to right. Little inside joke for Chris and I here. Chris, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you've learned valuable lessons and strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time. How